The fourth president of the Law Society of Kenya is Nelson Havi. He's here with us this morning. Wakili, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Do.
How are you?
I'm great.
You're great?
Yes.
Things are happening?
Everywhere.
But before we get there,
Tell me.
Dennis Aseto has gone to Zambia this week.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And from Zambia, I'm coming with Nshima. Nshima comes from maize, so it's not sima, it's Nshima. It's some sort of porridge, which is a national delicacy in Zambia. But even as we talk about that, let's talk about the economy. So it's a country whose economy is being fueled by mining industry, and they produce cobalt and copper. They are actually one of the largest copper producers in the world. So if you look at that and just look at even the electricity that we enjoy, and copper being a critical component with that, a beautiful country. Also, independence-wise, it is a country that continues to push democracy agenda in the continent. But let's go to a proverb this morning. One head cannot carry a roof. One head cannot carry a roof. How would you interpret that?
They say a roof houses many people and many items within the household. Evidently, therefore, it will burden one head. There is therefore need for many heads to sustain that roof. Quite an appropriate proverb.
Yeah, you know, you are the 49th president. One would look at it in terms of how many heads came together to bequeath you with that. You know.
Yeah, Gado caricatured it. Many people could not understand it. It looked like a presidency created out of many ballot papers. Some said it looked like a paper tiger. I remember that cartoon with my goatee. Gado is just something else.
Indeed. Well, we're looking into a conversation this morning around holding the state accountable. Many things have happened, whether we're talking about the law, whether we're talking about social justice, through and the politics of it all is just coming into play. Constitutional rights in Kenya, certain things are guaranteed under the Constitution, that because there is this supreme law, not the suggestion or not the desire, but the demand that certain things then be upheld, implemented and then upheld, is true. It is what is in existence. We're focusing this morning on, unfortunately, the neglect that we see that's happening, and we're asking, what does this have to do with what the rights that are enshrined in the Constitution for Kenyans and what it means? There's a lot that's not happening. Can we tie this to the Constitution and say, because the Constitution says, therefore it must be? We are looking at a healthcare crisis. We are looking at a lot of neglect. We're looking at things that are just not moving. And the reasons that we're being given for that is that there are not enough resources to go around. Do lack of resources trump the demand that the Constitution gives?
Well, the starting point is the degeneration of the social contract within the constitutional setup itself. The other day, I was intrigued to see how President William Samoei Ruto and Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga were going to fuse their parties and hold a joint parliamentary party group meeting. Where? How? In this dispensation of a multi-party constitutional democracy where there is a majority and minority, the problem has started from the top. And with that, you're able to perceive how it cascades down and impacts negatively. Look at healthcare, for instance. A week ago or so thereabout, the president made a directive that all governmental medical institutions should provide free medical care. How do you merge that with this monstrous acronym called SHA, where they complicate the manner of provision of basic medical health care? I've always taken the position that these complexities are intended to perpetuate fraud, to steal from the people instead of providing them medical care. Look, when we grew up and I've said this time without number, all you needed to do is to present yourself before a dispensary, and there will be a laboratory, there will be a nurse or a doctor, and you'll be given medicine. You went by yourself. No money.
True.
No card. So if we're providing health care, that is what we ought to do. But they have created a layer so complex that it cannot be understood, but its only purpose is to pilfer. What about the economic aspect that Madam Du has spoken about? I have never, despite my claimed great understanding of ideas, understood this phenomenon called economic empowerment. Where is the legal framework to sustain it? What is the end goal? How do you empower a woman who you have removed from the shamba, from the fish pond, from the market for the entire day by giving her 1,000 shillings? You understand? That can never be economic empowerment. Where is the failure? We needed you as the government to utilize the monies that have been budgeted towards projects that have been planned in advance so that the people are able to get food, they're able to take their children to school, they're able to get free medical care as and when they need it. There is a total collapse of government as defined under the Constitution.
Wakili, when you talk about right to healthcare in the country, so you talk about Article 43.1 that talks about right to healthcare. Now, there's Article 51C, every child has the right to basic nutrition. Article 56 mandates the health-related measures for marginalized groups. We have Article 21 and 43. A lot that has been captured by the Constitution on the need to ensure that the citizenry of this republic are healthy. But you look at what is happening, accessing SHA is a problem. You talk about Kiambu. Yesterday we were having a discussion here with the Secretary General KMPDU Kiambu County, and healthcare workers have been on strike for 83 days. Locals in Kiambu are not getting services. They have to dig deep into their pockets by going to private facilities. Look at what SHA is closing their satellite offices and whatnot. And one sits back and asks, where am I going to get help from if the government itself is denying me the rights I've granted myself through the Constitution?
Dennis, if you were to ask the people of Kiambu or a majority of the people of Kenya, because I see some of them in my farm, they're excited that Harambee Stars players are being given 43 million. Where's that money coming from? It's your money. It's not William Ruto's money. It's not his money. It's your money. Was it budgeted? No. It wasn't. Where's the legal framework to channel these monies? Nowhere. Ask yourself, where are the monies for economic empowerment coming from? It is not the monies of those individuals who appear and give lectures to people in Kabaras, Kabarengo, and Malakisi. It is your money. So when you cheer these people because they have given Harambee Stars players, Harambee Stars players are professionals. They are paid for their work. The same way you are paid for your work. The same way a magistrate policeman is paid for his or her work. What are you telling us, that you're going to use 45 million to pay them for doing their work? Whose money that you're spending? Now, when you understand these wider concepts, you agree with me that the problem is with us people. We keep on cheering mediocrity. We keep on praising mediocrity. We keep on clapping for what is wrong. We need to say no to such things. Otherwise, if we don't say no, we'll be temporarily happy today because Harambee Stars have won a match. They've been given for 3 million. That the women in Mugirango or in Kandui have been given money for empowerment. No. Independence connotes three things: food, education, and health. For as long as monies are not being channeled towards those three, we are not independent. And why should we not be independent many years after we were granted independence?
So then, when we're looking at these things, I think the word has just been playing in my head for a while, that I think about a vortex, and whatever element, wind or water, that just seems to be swirling, and the people are caught up in the middle of it, not sure where they're going to land later. Now, as that happens, that there's a political side of it. It doesn't matter where you are in whatever jurisdiction, you will always find that. There's a political side of it, which you would imagine would want to come into a position whereby they offer leadership, whereby they offer their skills and expertise then towards development for the nation, for these people who are caught up in this whirlwind. Do we see, and I mean, it sounds almost difficult to ask, but do we see that there is a push or that there is a direction towards that when people land, they will land on something? Here's the problem. We're swirling around in it. Take your pick. Education, health, infrastructure, take your pick. And it seems as though there is an awareness of those problems. And that's why you see things like this economic development drive. That's why you see things like, majority of the players who play for national teams are not able to afford life. So in this thing where they've given, most of themselves for nation, for patriotism, let's award them, because there's an awareness that they're not doing so well. There's the awareness that we need to do something. So when you go, you give a handout. And then there's the politics swirling in the same pot where you say, okay, let's get to the clearing where we give better leadership. Do we see that the strife is for better leadership or it's for personal gain?
To a large extent, the determination by those who claim to provide alternative form of government, this personal gain. I mean, they're not any different from what we have right now. But should the people of Kenya lose hope? No, they shouldn't lose hope. And I want to debunk this myth about politics. I always prefer to categorize it as elective leadership, because leadership will either be elective or appointive. Politics tends to prevail in that arena of elective leadership. But the right to vie and the right to vote is a constitutional right. This is a right that must be exercised informedly. As this, I will categorize them as three formations. Mm-hmm. There is the government in office, the government of President William Ruto. There is the so-called opposition. It is multifaceted. It has the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka, it has Rigathi Gachagua, it has Fred Matiang'i, et al. And there's the progressive desired government. Mm-hmm. I think that's the one that is led by David Maraga, mm-hmm. and which I affiliate with. But fundamentally, the choice of how we get out of where we are to the place where we aspire to be is one that must be exercised from a point of information, a lot of information. You based your proverb from Zambia. Zambia and Ghana stand out to be model democracies in Africa, mm-hmm. For weird reasons. Ghana, because Flight Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings took drastic measures, very drastic measures, to deter anybody who will ever become president of that country, yep. of ever imagining to pilfer for personal gain, because he killed 3 presidents, amongst many other people. Quite a drastic measure. Mm-hmm. It worked. Zambia, they took drastic action when they embraced multi-party democracy. A little bit bad if you look at it from a broader perspective, how they mistreated Kenneth Kaunda and subsequent president. But one thing you need to pick from Zambia is that you can be sure there will be democratic change in government. The last election just pointed out to that fact. It doesn't matter who you are. When your term has come to go, you have to go. In Kenya, we don't seem to have that, despite the fact that we have the most transformative constitution. And we've always said the reason why we're here is because at the nascent stage, the constitution was taken over. It was a constitutional coup where individuals who ought not to have been in office are seated into office. How do you remedy this? Because it must be remedied. You can't use the Ghana model of flight, Lieutenant Jerry Rawlings. It's not applicable right now. You may want to take steps as were taken in Zambia, where you need to hold those who have left office accountable. You remember Frederick Chiluba was jailed?
Yes.
Yes. These things must be done. And if they're not done, we'll be recycling this set of bad leaders every 5 years, every 10 years.
Okay, you look at it in terms of what Ghana did. Look at what Zambia did. Now, as we started, you said the problem is us as the citizenry. That therefore calls for the citizenry to understand the power that we hold as a people, the power we hold in terms of voting and even holding leaders accountable on what they did while in office and even after they leave. Does the citizenry in this republic understand these? And if not, how then do we push them to ensure that they make the right choices when given the opportunity to?
A majority of Kenyans behave like buffaloes and wildebeest. They understand the power they have collectively. But often they will shy away from exercising that power out of cowardice. Why is the model I've given you? One lion puts a buffalo down, and 200 buffaloes are just circulating around it, not knowing what to do. But often you will see a rowdy bull pick the lion, toss it up again. Then the other buffaloes realize, oh, this can be done. And then the buffaloes regain their power. Let me use an example that is close to me. In the recent past, I've been lamenting about corruption, impunity in the judiciary. I mean, truth be told, Ndu and Double Dennis, I look like the only buffalo that is tossing up in the air the lion. You understand?
Yeah.
But it is not that this problem is peculiar to Nelson Havi. The problem, in fact, you know, I sorry to say, I have some measure of vehemence with which I can get things done in the court without without a lot of desperation. But the reason why I push for this, just like that single buffalo that tosses the lion up, is so that the lions understand we can also stake our claim for position in the jungle. That is the problem. The people must realize the power they have. The roof cannot be sustained by one head, Dennis. You understand? The one head may be overwhelmed. So the people need to collectively deal with this thing. At the judiciary, at the executive, at the legislature. Yesterday I saw this friend of mine saying that he's going to impeach President William Samoei Ruto, and he had so much venom. And the venom just dissipated within a few minutes of its emanation. It's like a whirlwind that just disappeared. Of course, they have a point. The president has a point. The president has accused them of corruption. I mean, the president is speaking the truth. That one I can tell you without any fear of contradiction. The point of departure with the president is this. He's the biggest person who bribes the damn MPs. And they know as much. So it's a duel that may not have a casting vote. But it depicts the magnitude and level of the problem. They have reached a point in time where the president can no longer get money to bribe MPs. And the MPs can no longer be coerced or induced, but by more money. It's a total collapse of the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature.
If you point out corruption, which has been there for a very long time, if we're not handling the things that need handling, then we're going to see things break down. But you've also said before that perhaps this is what needs to happen. Or is it a different kind of collapse that you're talking about? Things fall apart and they try to scramble them. Or a phrase that I've thought that makes sense to me in the last couple of days is it needs a hard stop. When you're using a piece of technology or gadget or something and you find that things are not working, they ask you to do a reset. Take it back to the way the factory had set it in the first place and start again. Hard stop. Stop it and then take your losses, move. has Kenya gotten to the point whereby it needs a hard stop? It needs a factory reset, not this fiasco that we are seeing when things don't work for you, then you want to regroup and present yourself later, whereas it's still the same pieces of the puzzle.
Yes, you're right. It must crash. You see, I had my phone for almost 7 years. Very sentimental. One morning, it just refused. It crashed. So when I went to Apple, they told me the phone has outlived its usefulness. You need to get another phone. So I got another phone. So it's right, it must collapse. And we need to precipitate the collapse. I've seen these two arguments. One was projected by Raila Amolo Odinga. I said, not in exact words, that we figured we could have this bad government, then have a collapsed government. He said something like that.
Yes.
That is why we decided to give some breathing space to William Ruto. The other day, CJ Martha Koome also says this cyberbullying, vilification of judges, is intended to interfere with the independence of the judges. We'll lose the judiciary. We want to lose the damn judiciary. The judiciary is not Martha Koome. It's not Martha Koome. We need to lose the damn judiciary. We need to lose parliament. We need to lose the executive. Nothing wrong will happen. The world has been here for a million years. The human race has been here for a million years. We need these scoundrels to go home because they think they are Kenya. They're not Kenya. Kenya has been here before them. You understand? So catalytic action targeted on the executive, targeted on the legislature, targeted on the judiciary. For me, I've said, I'm going down with the damn judiciary. They either reform or they go down. It doesn't matter what retaliation they have in mind. I'll adopt the Ukongo approach. I will cut somebody down before I put myself on the pole.
On the pole.
Yes.
Well, it seems, Wakili, so you have the executive, which has long been accused, and as we, watch what is happening, so you've got people who are in the executive who are going about the empowerment programs and doing so many things. And the Auditor General has done so many reports that clearly details the corruption levels and wastage of public funds through the executive. Then we drop to the legislature. It's not news. The president saying that there's corruption. These are things that people have known. We've had people here say, this thing is happening around us. These are the MPs at the Senate level. Then there's the judiciary. What, in your opinion, do you think is, because it looks like all these structures, there's a boiling point where all these structures then must collapse so that we can have a rebirth. But what is that process going to look like? Because if you have then a collapse, then there are consequences to a country if that was to happen. What does that process look like? Is an election one of those processes? And if that is one of the processes, how then do we ensure that whatever is decided at the ballot, for example, trickles down to affect these three that I've just mentioned? What does that process look like?
I've thought about it, and I've coined this as the 15 million Gen Z ballot revolution. I'm happy that David Maraga has embraced that phenomenon, because I've said we'll have wished to put these people on a guillotine, we'll have wished to hang them, we'll have wished to shoot them at Uhuru Park. But we live in a modern world where none of the three can be done. But we still can do that through the ballot. You understand? The ballot has the power of reconstituting the executive. The ballot has the power of reconstituting the legislature. The reconstituted executive and legislature has the power to reset the judiciary. And this is not new. When we got rid of President Daniel Arap Moi, you saw what happened. The reconstituted executive and legislature undertook a purge of the judiciary. We send home close to 30 corrupt and incompetent judges. We send home more than 100 corrupt and incompetent magistrates. It was a painful experience, but it created sustainable integrity and accountability in the judiciary for 10 years. Until then, again, we took a drastic action. We promulgated the Constitution. You understand? And after promulgating the Constitution, we had the Transition National Coalition Government, which had two heads at the executive and a robust parliament, then oversighted by Kenneth Otiato Marende. And you saw what happened. We got a new Chief Justice, we got a new Attorney General, we got a new Director of Public Prosecution, we got a new Judicial Service Commission. We started the vetting of judges and magistrates. And I've said we need to have the vetting of judges and magistrates undertaken after a minimum of 10 years. If this is not done, individuals will come here, small boys and girls who do not know what I'm talking about, are appointed judges. There was one girl who is my classmate, drives a Lexus that costs 35 million. Where? As a judge. Where do you get this money? We know you've been bribed. You understand? So we need these things done. It's painful. It may cause a disruption. But you must burn the forest for the new grass to germinate. The seeds will not die. In fact, burning enables the seeds to germinate pretty fast. So, Dabo Denise and Madam Ondu, do not be afraid of the 15 million Gen Z ballot revolution. This is the key to resetting this country to the position that we intended in August when we promulgated the Constitution.
Wakili, is there any trust or belief that with the president's latest pronouncements in the fight against corruption, that his intention is actually to fight corruption? Or is it just another political game being played?
President William Samoei Ruto has no intention whatsoever of fighting corruption, because corruption has punctuated the tenure of this government. You understand? But you see, sometimes you need people like him to speak, because who knows better the level, the penetration of corruption than President William Samoei Ruto? So what he says is the truth. The alligator has come out of the water, and you must listen to the alligator. Don't judge the alligator. Just take the facts from the alligator, apply it. The president is speaking the truth. Let us speak those truths and utilize it.
That's interesting, but the welcome to those sentiments has been more of defense than anything else, and that there's been an asking for proof of those allegations. I mean, from your quarters, we were told this all the time, that he who alleges then must prove, and that's what they've asked him to do over the last couple of days. But it seems as though the attention is not towards ridding any areas of corruption, but that it is to give an answer to what the president has said. Summon the president, let him come here and tell us who he knows has given 10 million shillings in a bribe. Summon the president, let him come and tell us who he knows has received that amount of money. You see what I'm saying? The response to this declaration has not been, let us fix it, as it were. The alligator's out of the water, but it's not biting anything. No. The response has been, let's see how I can defend myself, as opposed to ridding these quarters, wherever they may be, of corruption. So is it going to yield the results that we would say everybody's looking for?
As a lawyer, I'm mindful of the legal rules of evidence. But as Nelson Havi, I also like the underworld. Like Vito Corleone, the Godfather, I do not require the legal rules of evidence to
play the game.
Some of these characters. When I tell you Alfred Mabea, Josephine Mungare have been paid money to make a decision in the Gikomba matter, and you ask me to bring proof. You're asking me a stupid question.
How
because
so?
The Court of Appeal has said these two judges did not have jurisdiction to handle this matter.
In the first place.
In the first place. Okay. You've seen the manner in which they handled the matter. It It is them to prove that their conduct was not corrupt. You understand? The finance bill was flawed from the beginning. Okay? It was passed by the scoundrels. It was rejected by the president. On rejecting the bill, the scoundrels were clapping. So they knew what was wrong. The scoundrels cannot ask us to demand of the president to prove. We know what you did last summer. You understand? So this false construct, he who alleges must prove. Often you cannot prove the negative. And even the Evidence Act says if a fact is within the peculiar knowledge of the person in issue, it need not be the obligation of the accuser to prove. You understand? I left you people here with my phone. I went. You cannot tell me to prove that you three stole my phone. You are the only ones who have access to this room. Who else will have stolen my phone? It's the three of you. Are we communicating? So we must cease using these institutions. And there is an American phrase that those who control the system will tell you to channel your grievances through the system because they know they control the damn system. These legislators control the system. Martha Koome and the Judicial Service Commission and a majority of them and a minority of corrupt and incompetent judges and magistrates control the system. They tell us, can you substantiate? Substantiate what? You know, the level of tolerance of Kenyans is waning, and is waning pretty fast. Like for the judiciary in particular. You saw in Busia, they have said we don't want this magistrate. The magistrate will have to leave Busia, or they will kill her. They will kill her. She has to leave Busia. The other day, I think not the other day, yesterday, they set ablaze a court. Why? Because Koome and the Judicial Service Commission have refused to listen. Sorry, last year, a magistrate was shot in circumstances that were unclear. But we know it is because of a deal gone sour. You know, the moment the people of Kenya fail to address issues through these channels that you, Martha Koome, and the JC have said we must address it, we'll resort to self-help. We'll become like Don Corleone. And you see, we don't like blood. It's not good for business, to quote Don Corleone. But if you force us, then we will do what is unconventional. People will do it. People will take the law into their hands. It has happened in other countries before. Martha Koome should not take Kenya there. She must leave office yesterday.
When we look at the institutions, essentially, that run a country, we have the three. We know what the three arms of government are and in terms of what they're supposed to do. Are we looking at a position, or based on what you've said and based on what we see, are we looking at a position where the three arms, the last 2 days, essentially coming at each other, giving from examples that you've talked about, in terms of governing a nation, have they failed?
The three have failed. The head of the executive has failed. The head of the judiciary has failed. The two heads of the legislature have failed. But we shouldn't lose hope because we've projected how this matter can be resolved through the ballot. It's just 1.5 years. But there has to be a momentum to gravitate towards that revolution. People must ensure everybody who has turned the age of 18 is registered as a voter. They must ensure professionals, and I will repeat this, professionals turn up to vote. Professionals present their names for election. We cannot have the only medical doctor in Parliament as Dr. James Nyikal, my model legislator. I know often he knows the correct thing to do, but he's alone. You understand? There are times when we had few professional, outstanding individuals in Parliament. They spoke, they acted, and they got things done. Remember the other day when the Gen Zs said they will take over State House?
Yes.
and the entire city was barricaded as if we were at war. These kids were in the streets up to about 5. It spelled doom. I always look at problems from a different perspective. I want these 15 million Gen Zs to register, to vie, to vote, and on the date of the election, to stay awake as they did on the 25th of July and have the returns of the elections with them at about 6 to 8 p.m. Nobody will steal the election. Like the president of Zambia, who could not sustain himself in office, this gentleman will have to go.
Okay, we've had a trust deficit because if that is the solution, then the election, there are already conversations before even the IBC formation. There were conversations around the names, the nominees, the gazettement, and conversations around who these people then represent, and interests around the commissioners leading now to an election. We've had this in the past in this country where there's an agitation to have something different, and then people go. I quoted my mechanic another day in this show, and I said, when I asked him, will you vote? Because he was telling me the economy is doing so badly. They can barely feed their families. And I asked him, would you want to see a change? Yes. Are you willing to go and vote? And the candidate that he voted for a couple of times said, I don't trust this candidate anymore. I'm done. We've been taken for granted for far too long. But are you going to vote? And he said, I don't think my vote will even matter. And I asked why. Because we know these elections, it's not about us voting. They will steal either way. There is that perception that it won't matter whether I go, the 15 million go to vote. They already have a history that elections are always stolen. If we go back to the time even when Mwai Kibaki was sworn in for his second term as president, this was on 30th December 2007, at 6 p.m., the process was so hurried. And the point here is, if we are having these conversations now and we are directing all our attentions to trust a process that in the past has been flawed, and we get to that point and things don't go the way most people will be thinking, then what happens next?
In Zambia and in Ghana, incumbents have lost election, isn't it? In fact, the immediate former president of Zambia, Lungu, was an incumbent and he lost an election. True or not true?
True.
Same with Ghana. Because those people are deliberate and determined. You understand? Unlike your mechanic, they'll turn up and vote. And they will protect the vote. In Zambia, they protected the vote. You get it? I want to encourage your mechanic and anybody else to turn up and vote. A lady determined to have a child will always have a child, irrespective of how many miscarriages she has. You understand? You must try until you finally get what you want. Fundamentally, an election is like a drum. You may steal it, but where you beat that drum, people will know where the drum is. You understand? And that is why I'm deliberate. Of course, the word to steal the election is as clear as daylight. I've participated in elections. Some have lost, some have won. I've won an election where there was a determination to steal in favor of my opponent. But the numbers were so huge that my opponents could not see how to steal. They went to ICU for about 2 weeks after I won. You get it? Send these characters to ICU. You understand? Send them to ICU.
Is there a connection?
Let the numbers be enormous. 15 million.
Let it be enormous. Is there a connection between the things that are agitated for in the street and then what is dictated by the laws of governance of a country to say that I can make the direct distinction or connection between what you fight for in the street and then what must happen at the ballot? Because you can say, you can do, you can riot, you can picket, you can lobby. But if you don't do those things that you said, then you will not achieve a result. It's not the law of the jungle. Kenya is still bound by law. It is still operating within a law, however you choose to look at it.
Yes.
So if you don't register, if you don't vote, if you don't vie, all of these things are useless.
Yes. And fundamentally, the problem we have in Kenya is the rigidity of regime change. In the United States of America, they can countenance a bad president because they know they will remove him in the next election. In Zambia and Ghana, they will remove him in the next election. You understand? But here you will be told, and this is what my father always says, you know my father, Mudavadi, but in Africa, ordinarily, a president serves 10 times. I mean, 10 years.
10 years.
Two terms. Which Africa? Zambia and Ghana is not in Africa? It's these false constructs. And when he says this, you start clapping. You're clapping for bullshit. When he says this, you pick stones, send him home. You understand? Send him home. Let my DVD not tell you this nonsense. And I'm telling the people of Maragoli, we are fed up. Yeah, the people of Maragoli, Vihiga, and Kakamega, and many of us who are in Translation, we are fed up with this nonsense. We want good leadership. You can't come and tell us that our constitutional right to vie and vote has been curtailed because of customs and norms you coin, which have no domicility within the Constitution. Therein lies the problem. Don't clap for these people. I want you to stop clapping for these people. Tell them no. Tell them what the people of Ghana have told the exiting leaders. Tell them what the people of Zambia have told the exiting leaders. You may have a bad leader, but if the system is so rigid or is projected to be so rigid that you lose hope, like Denise mechanic, you don't want to vote, therein lies the problem. But if you are determined to ensure, despite the perceived and projected rigidity, you exercise your right to vie and vote, you will attain the desired change. I'm hopeful.
Hopeful. And this is what Kenyans must be. Not against anyone, but for the people, essentially. Nelson Havi, thank you for being here this morning. Words that we hope that we'll cling on to and actually turn them into action. Asante for being here this morning.
Always a pleasure.
Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.